My video for February the 25th, 2020 is number 3,377. The title is Wading Through a Maze of Disinformation. It's painful to realize that most everything we've ever been taught is riddled with lies. It's no joking matter. There are no religions based on love alone, but of course some may make that claim. For God so loved the world was perhaps one of the first scriptures I committed to memory. Yes, I believed it. My parents not only told me so, the churches they took me to as a small child confirmed it. People in all cultures teach their kids, both by example and brainwashing. How is a child expected to know what is and what isn't true? It requires discernment that few, if any, child has from an early age. For me, that would be the most important gift of the Spirit anyone can receive and develop. But it's one that takes time and life experience for it to take root in the mind. When it does, many will begin to question. That might lead a person to reflect outside the layers of conformity. Disillusionment is the result. It's hard for me to see much that I would consider love on this planet of deception, especially when looking at humanity. As I was creating that blurb and thinking about making this video, which of course I do every day, I was thinking back to the times that I've loved and considering that the only love I've ever really witnessed is the love between a parent and a child. I truly think that I loved my children, especially when they were little, but I still have communication and relationship with both of my children and my grandchildren, although my granddaughters, it's less and less, but that's because they're in adolescence, and of course I don't fit into their circle, as is true of most adolescents. I mean, it's just the way it is. That doesn't mean it's not love. It just means that they're going through stages, and we all go through stages of development. As I said, I was taught from an early age that the Bible was the Word of God, and I was taught to memorize scriptures. There were always memory verses. Every week we had a new memory verse for Sunday school. Every week. And for God so loved the world, John 3:16, of course, was one of the earliest ones, if not the earliest, one of the earliest ones. But there were other texts that we were taught as kids to memorize, and I was an ardent memorizer. There was a time I could quote whole Psalms and perhaps even some chapters out of the Bible, and certainly portions of chapters out of the Bible. It was just the way it was. And I had, as I've said in other videos, a pictographic memory so that I could actually see pages with writing on it, with words on them, when it wasn't in front of me. I had no book in front of me, no Bible, no paper. I could just see. I mean, that was a gift. I wish I still had it. If I have any of it left, any remnants of that left, I'm not aware of it. In any case, we have been fed a lot of disinformation. Why? Well, it's because nobody knows. I don't think there's anybody, or at least there aren't many people on this planet that know God. I certainly don't know God. God is an enigma to me. The greatest paradox is that God is supposed to love, but yet he's jealous. Love and jealousy don't go together in my mind. Maybe they do for some other people, but I've seen people that parents that try to indoctrinate their children and guide their children. Guide isn't even guide is not a bad word, but they try to manipulate the child to go in a certain direction as they're growing up because they see the child as fulfilling the parent wishes. In other words, the parent becomes fulfilled by what the child does. That's, crazy. Children that are able to pursue their own avenues and the parent has enough wisdom to see what the child likes. What are the dispositions or predispositions of the child, and help develop those avenues, whether it's music or art or studying literature or whatever it is. The parent that nurtures the child allows the child to go in the direction that the child has interest in, not one that the parent wants the child to do. And perhaps that's one of the reasons there is so much insanity on the world, because so many of us have allowed ourselves to be programmed not only by our parents, but by our churches, by our schools, and by society itself. And virtually everything in society, if you step back from it as much as you can and look at it, something's wrong. Things are not what we are told they are. In fact, they're often diametrically opposite of what we are told they are. We are given the word love, but we don't see it. And when we don't see it and we don't feel it for ourselves and in ourselves, it's hard to demonstrate it, which is why I believe so many relationships fall apart and people just don't develop strong bonds with other people. I mean, my first marriage, as I've said, was, if you break up with me, I'll kill myself. That was how I was supposed to take responsibility for someone else. But this is crazy too. I can only be responsible for me because I'm the only one that can respond to the circumstances and stimulus that I meet in my own life. And does that rule out love? I don't know. I feel very alone. I feel alienated from my own family. To a large extent, I feel alienated by God because of unanswered prayers. I know I've said that so many times. But I'd like to see love be the reality for humanity. It's not, but I'd like to see it become so, where we actually cared about one another enough to tell the truth and enough to accept someone else's truth when they tell us, instead of trying to get them to believe something. Belief is not love. In fact, it prevents love. It prevents us from being able to experience what are termed, from my teaching, the gifts of the Spirit. And love is the most important fruit of the Spirit that anyone could possibly have. It's the first one. Love is the first fruit of the Spirit. And yet it's lacking, as truth is lacking in almost all human relations. Thank you for listening, and namaste.